Tudor, take us into the waters. Seiko scare us back out again. Chipek show us the spectrum. And Casio finally get into mechanical wristwear. Plus all the latest news in the watch world from across the globe. Welcome to the Scottish Watches podcast.
Remember, check out the show notes, play along at home, read about everything that we are talking about, even maybe get to see some pictures. Of course, you can also check for spelling mistakes. And if you are watching on YouTube, you're missing half the story. You should be listening to the podcast on your way to work, walking the dog, or if you're just out for a little stroll to clear your mind, listening to us talking nonsense about watches.
For the last few episodes of the show, we've not really had the time at the beginning to go through the motions. Hey Dave, what have you been up to? How are things? Are you in Scotland? Are you in Switzerland? Because there's too many releases. We thought it'd be the quiet period. We thought on the run up to what is supposed to be summer here in Scotland, there wouldn't be much to talk about. But in fact, there is just tons and tons every single day. There are emails coming through from people we know about and from brands we've never heard about before. But we're keen to bring all that information to you, so there is going to be less chit chat at the beginning. We're going to get straight into it. And who should we talk about? We'll talk about a firm favourite, somebody that we do talk about in the show a lot, and they're definitely playing the game of not holding back releases for the big heavy hitting events such as Watches and Wonders, Geneva Watch Days, and that's Tudor, a brand that up until maybe a couple of years back would always drop maybe March, April, and then perhaps something Navy related, water related around about September time. Well, they just keep batting them out the park at the moment.
Tudor have another launch. They have been launching pretty much on a 2-weekly basis over the last few months, I have to say. Obviously, that comes after all the releases at Watches and Wonders. And this is a watch we're about to talk about. I actually have seen this watch in real life. Just a few days ago, back at the On Herology event, one of my friends was actually wearing it. She was very lucky to probably pick it up on the day it was released.
Watch friends.
Watch friends. Yes, indeed. This is the Lagoon Blue version of the Black Bay 54 edition.
The Blue Lagoon version.
Lagoon Blue. Blue Lagoon.
Like the chip shop in Glasgow.
Yep, that's probably where I'm getting that confused from, because it's actually technically it's the Lagoon Blue, not the Blue Lagoon. That is a chip shop in Glasgow. Well, I wouldn't say a great one. It becomes your friend when you've maybe imbibed in a little bit much alcohol. Anyway, back to the watch. This is the Black Bay 54 Lagoon Blue, to give it its full and correct name. Black Bays were launched back in 2012. And of course, that was the first classic edition, that 41mm that I think most people generally quite like that watch. Of course, followed up by one that was even more popular in the watch kind of enthusiast community, that being the Black Bay 58, that being a 39mm version. And there was a bigger version, the 43mm Black Bay 68, that came out as well. But the most compact version of it, the 37mm Black Bay 54, that's what we're talking about now. This one, well, the clue's in the name, 37mm. It's got a thickness of 11.24mm, which does make it one of the slimmer ones. We maybe lean into the kind of narrative that Black Bays are a little bit thick. Well, they are in my opinion, but this one definitely at the more wearable end of the spectrum on that side of things. Lug to lug of 46, which of course will make it very wearable on smaller wrists. You've got that 200 metres of water resistance, firmly puts it into the diving category watch, but the fit and finish of this watch maybe doesn't lend itself to being too much of a tool watch in my opinion, because it's got, slightly unusually for a Black Bay, a mirror polished steel insert on the bezel. And you've got a kind of tone-on-tone effect going on there with the numerals as well, where you've got a kind of satinized effect on the numerals, but you will not get away from that mirror polished insert on the bezel. You've also got that Lagoon Blue dial, which is something a little bit different, maybe something not seen on Black Bays before, a sand-like kind of granular texture on there. Of course, what you do have, this is the love-hate part about these watches, is the snowflake hands. Some folk love them, some folk definitely do not. You've got that kind of Tudor Kinesi movement, the MT5400, which is the same as what you would expect in any of these models. That broadly makes up the base of the kind of time-telling module in the majority of Black Bays. 70 hours of power reserve, runs at 4 Hz, silicon hairspring. In the case of this one, it's COSC certified. We don't have the master chronometer certification here on this one, but you do have a bit of fine-tuning as their big brother or sister does at Rolex, although not to -2+2, to -2+4, so you've got a slightly tighter accuracy on there. Exclusively available on a steel bracelet. There is no rubbers on offer so far on this one. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But it is a new bracelet. It's a 5-link Jubilee rather than that kind of riveted over bracelet that I'm not the biggest fan of. You do have the T-Fit micro adjust system, which is definitely at the better end of adjustment. Price point wise, 3,900 Swiss francs or 4,240 euros.
My thoughts on this one is well done, Tudor. Not that they need our praise or recommendations because they're doing well without us. I love the colour and I love the fact they're taking a bit more of an adventure. They used to do that. They had the North Flag, they had the Fast Rider Black Shield Ceramic, the only Tudor that I own. And then they kind of pulled back and they were a little bit more apprehensive. And this wasn't anything to do with the pandemic because Tudor Rolex, they have a lead time of multiple years for any new edition and model. But I think they've taken a leaf out of perhaps Christopher Ward's book and seen that you can produce a cool watch that's very funky and seasonal. Now, this is not throwaway money. We're talking around about the £4,000 mark, there or thereabouts, depending where you are in the world. So it's not pocket change, but compared to the cost of Rolexes nowadays, entry-level Omegas, watches of that ilk, Swiss brands with decent heritage that are in those upper echelons. We're not talking mid-tier, we're not talking Hamilton, Longines, Tissot, etc. But I think they've done really well. And the dial, you're right, it's not a sand texture, it's almost a sand-blasted or a pumice stone texture with the slight coloration that you'd expect for those pastel shades in the summer. So I think this is an absolute win. Would I buy one myself? No, not at the moment, because I'm a very happy boy. I have been a busy boy. I have been down to the safety deposit box, and I have exchanged the watch that I had out at the moment, which was the Chipek. I have returned that, and I have taken out a new watch. So should we do the wrist checks? Because we always seem to forget all about it.
We do. We've had so much news to cover over the last few episodes, we kind of forget to do the wrist check. So we'll do a fast and furious. I always come second, as, well, anyone who listens to the podcast for any length of time knows. So Ricky, you can go first. What have you got out of the safe deposit box?
So yes, I have been, perfect. I did not set this a second ago. I just seem to know how to set a watch that when we end up doing a wrist check, sometimes it ends up being perfect time at 10 past 10. This is my Ulysse Nardin Freak X Magma Edition. It is made of carbonium, cool name, which is a mix of coloured resin and carbon. That's the case material. Inside you've got a titanium tub. We've talked about that recently. Tudor do it. Formex do it. People do it when they want to have a ceramic out or a carbon out or something that is a little bit porous, maybe a little bit hard and not as easy to work into the exact shapes for water resistance. They drop something metallic inside. Titanium seems to be the material of the day. The feature on this one is the fact it's got that massive wheel on the second hand. It's not a tourbillon, but it's tourbillon-like. And yeah, this is the least expensive of the Freak collection. They go up to hundreds of thousands, but these ones you can get from the 20,000 up the way. Red, black, my colour scheme. Silver, blue, also my colour scheme. This is an absolute win. And the fact I've not been near the safety deposit box for 6 months because of the house move and everything else, it was just like getting a new watch. It was like seeing an old friend you've not seen in a very long time. Very happy to have this one back on the wrist for a little bit of time before I head back and swap it for something else. And for the benefits of people that want to see what the back end looks like, it is very sparkly, but also quite stealth-like. Lots of matte finishes there. You've got the rotor with the UN logo inside. You've got a ball bearing, ceramic centre. Yeah, it's just a fantastic watch. Very underrated brand. We've done our best over the past couple of years to bring them to the fore. We've had Matthew, the MD, on a number of times for full shows. We've had a couple of insert pieces, and we try and cover all the releases that they drop out, and obviously people we know within the industry, Nico Leonard, etc., Mr. JWW, they're always parading the wares out and about when they're in their motor vehicles. But yeah, that is my wrist check for today. It's the Ulysse Nardin Freak X Magma Edition in carbonium and titanium. What have you got in the wrist, Dave?
I am wearing something that is, well, related in many ways to what you're wearing. And no, we didn't plan this. So I am wearing my Girard-Perregaux Laureato. Unlike you, Ricky, I have not timed it or set the time to be perfectly towards the 10 past 10. Mine is actually set to the correct time and date, which does make a change for me, to be honest. But with that little rose gold GP logo for the 12 o'clock marker, it kind of doesn't matter because we know what it is anyway. This is the Infinite Edition, a limited edition, I think of 188 pieces, and this has the black onyx dial with the rose gold appliques and GP logo there. Definitely on the slim end, if I remember rightly, in and around the 9mm. This came on a bracelet, an integrated bracelet, but I have the official Laureato strap, the rubber strap there with the multi-deploying clasp. And in terms of the caliber, we of course have the in-house caliber there from Girard-Perregaux, which has got, again, the rose gold rotor on there. power reserve, not the best to be honest with you, but so many brands of the heritage ilks, shall we say, don't typically have huge power reserves because maybe they're sitting a little on the heritage of what they've done for many years, sometimes many hundreds of years. So yes, that's what I am wearing. A watch that I do not wear probably as much as I should, but I kind of love this one. This was an acquisition for me during the dark days of the you're not allowed to go outside phase, which lasted for around 2 years from 2020 to 2022. So that's what I'm wearing. But we should probably be getting on with things because we've got lots to cover this episode.
Yes, and we want to throw back to you listening and watching the show, because if it isn't for the emails, not the DMs, nearly said DMs, not for the emails, the comments, the criticisms, the suggestions and the feedback, we wouldn't have a lot of this content. We wouldn't know where to point our browsers to get you the information and bring it across in a visual and auditory format. But we do have some comments from the folks on YouTube, because the last edition we put out, we featured a couple of watches. There was a new brand in Kickstarter from a friend, and there was a watch that was very close and dear to my heart that was making a valiant comeback. So Dave, do you want to read some of these comments for us? Maybe we'll go back and forward.
We'll do a to and fro, like
a tag team.
Like a tag team. Is that like a Tag Heuer team, or is that something very different?
Like an Eiffel Tower.
Ah, slapping hands above our head type thing. Okay, we'll move on. Thomas_Burnett says, another great weekend installment here, fellas. Great work. So good to hear that Simon from Monceau Watches passed his target on Kickstarter. Let's hope there is more to come from this newly revived brand.
Mr. Watch says, Simon from Escapement24 and his new brand, Monceau, are great. This is really good stuff.
Dunderhay9169 says, I got excited when I heard about that new Accutron, but 6,000. That's 3 times the price of my Grand Seiko Quartz, accurate to 10 seconds a year. No way.
Sean McLaughlin 3075 says, the Aqualand is the ultimate Marmite watch. Never dived, but could see myself in it with my Arnie, as Ricky mentioned. On my other wrist as I urban adventure to the shops for some beers and McCoys, affirming my manliness. I love these types of watches for what they are in the collection.
And then we have Lester Loves Watches, Accutron. You had one job. Have the crown on the back, and you couldn't even get that right. After alienating almost every diehard 214 lover, you then put the boot right in with your £5,000 epic fail.
And the last one before we bore you to tears with all these, because they were really good and they made a lot of sense and they echoed the sentiments that we had, and people have got the ability to say yes, they agree or they disagree, and this time around we seem to get it right. So the last one is from somebody I met recently, James Portenson, and that is Gren Phelps, and he says 6K ? They can't quite make it right, can they? The modern Space View is a cracking watch, but it's just a bit too big. I wish they would make a reduced version. Then they bring out this retro mod version of the original. That's how I'd describe it, at least. Then crank up the price to the max. You can get the modern Space View cheaper. Both models. Talk about a huge miss.
Well, Ricky, it is June, the height of the summer in Scotland. Do you want to go for a wee swim in the sea?
Is it time to get your jaws around my buzz? Because Seiko have got a fantastic half-century commemoration of a movie that I only watched recently. How rare. And that is, of course, the original Jaws. The behind the scenes, the information and how this film was put together and how much of a gamble, a massive, massive gamble it was to create, and how it created panic across the world on beaches for decades to come, made sharks out to be far, far more dangerous than they actually are. Remember as a kid, you used to have this very unnatural fear of things like quicksand. What happens if in later life I come across some quicksand? What's going to happen? You know, things like that. Well, sharks, apparently, thanks to Jaws, it was a similar case. But yeah, the case in question here has got a case back and it's got a case front. Dave, tell us all about it.
It's 50 years since the release of that Steven Spielberg movie. I think it's fair to call it kind of a landmark movie, or it's also fair to call it a cult classic, but it's about that killer shark. And they brought out a version of their turtle diver. They've, of course, done lots of watches with the turtle marking different things, paddy watches.
Is that the Irish ones?
I don't think we're allowed to say that anymore technically, Ricky. But anyway, let's move on with that. It is 50 years since that movie came out, Jaws, Steven Spielberg's masterpiece. Pretty much we could chalk that up to being a cult classic these days. Of course, all about that killer shark that tries to, well, eat people, eat boats, pretty much eat anything that can get its teeth sunk into. So Seiko, what have they done? They've brought out a Seiko Prospex Turtle Diver Jaws Edition to celebrate this 50th anniversary. It's of course only going to be available in markets that doesn't include ours, that being the UK. Only available in Japan, United States, Australia and Taiwan.
Remember you used to call Seiko Psycho or Seikio? Well, I was watching a Fratello reel on Instagram and they've done that thing that we don't really do yet, where you have the text appearing, you know, the automated AI captions, and they were talking about the Seiko 5, but they're Dutch. So it kept saying, Psycho 5!
A Psycho 5. I mean, this one could be, I guess, called a Psycho 5 because it's trying to eat you. But yes, only unfortunately available in limited markets. As to why, who knows, probably down to licensing of some nature. But they're, of course, a limited edition release. But as we maybe mentioned in previous shows, Seiko and Citizen seem to do this whole thing with limited editions where it's not that limited. 5,000 examples of this watch are going to come up. You've got a bicolour dial that's kind of taking inspiration from that iconic poster that was done, I believe, by Roger Castell. You've got these kind of embossed ripwater tidal patterns on there that also conceals the shark, which you can only kind of see from certain angles by moving the dial about. Nice little touch there as well. You've got the Jaws logo behind the hands that's matching the kind of typography of the posters as well there. And then the theme on the case back continues. You've got the fishing boat from the film. I believe it was called Orca. You've got a shark's dorsal fin etched on there as well. And you've got the limited edition number. The bezel on it is ceramic in the case of this one in dark blue. Pretty much otherwise though, it's a standard Seiko King Turtle. What does that mean? That means a 45mm cushion case, 200 metres of water resistance, 47.7 lug to lug, which means it does wear a little bit better than you might think of a 45mm cased watch. You've of course got that little ISO 6425 compliant marker beside the date window. It has got a sapphire crystal. You've got the little magnifier over the combined day-date window on there as well. Caliber in it, as you would probably expect, a 4R36 with manual winding. You've got stop seconds and you've got quick set for both the day and the date. You've got a special box in there, the 50th anniversary logo, of course, and you've got a little watch pillow that's printed up as if it was the movie poster. Price point is going to be $795 US, firmly within the price sphere that you would expect from a King Turtle. Unfortunately, unless we go hunting in the internet, we are not going to be able to get one easily from the likes of some of our favourite retailers here in the UK that do Seiko, but I'm sure if you're in the markets we've already mentioned, you might want to pick one of these up.
Imagine if there was an international e-commerce platform that anybody could buy and sell upon, and it was 4 letters and was celebrating an anniversary. But anyway, hi eBay, how you doing? Great looking watch, fantastic to see something a little bit more divisive than the usual fare that you get from those guys. And yeah, if you want to see behind the scenes or learn the story of how Jaws was put together and how treacherous it was, then there'll be some links in the show notes. Did we tell you about that show notes thing? Play along at home. Details of all the stuff that is in this episode will be there. Click link in your podcast player. If you're watching this on YouTube, link will be in the description. I'm not feeling great. I'm in a little bit more pain than having to deal with Dave at the moment, so that's why this episode, a little bit ropey, on a couple of painkillers, enjoying life. And somebody that's enjoying life is, well, the guys at Berries down south in Leeds in the UK, because we recently talked about a pocket watch from a very naughty person, and it went up for auction. And we usually don't find out who buys these things. It's kept quiet. We sometimes don't actually find out how much was raised. But this time around, very quickly, Dave, tell us what happened.
Al Capone's Patek Philippe pocket watch, which we did mention, I think 2 or 3 episodes ago, was up for auction in New York, and it's been bought by a UK retailer, that retailer being Berries. Now, why have they done this? Well, they are due to open up their new Patek Philippe boutique, which I believe is opening around the end of June. Their historic flagship store on the corner of Albion Street in Leeds is going to become the only Patek Philippe boutique in the UK outside of London. So their managing director decided to trot over to New York to see if he could get his hands on this platinum timepiece. It was estimated to go between $80,000 and $160,000, but Simon Walton from Berries went over and he managed to scoop up this watch for the not insignificant sum of $95,250. So towards the bottom end of the estimation, so he's probably got himself a bit of a deal. The idea being he's going to display it in the window when they open up this beautiful new Patek Philippe boutique up in Leeds. So yes, if Patek is your brand, if you maybe want to even just get a eyes on this watch, you'll be able to do it in the UK, and it's not going to go and hide in a safe somewhere of a collector, never to see the light of day again until it comes back to auction. So yes, nice to see it going to somewhere that's going to put it on, well, let's just say display for the public to see.
I had this conversation last time, still didn't really get a proper answer to why people are fixated on naughty folks and their belongings once they pass on, because you wouldn't see somebody going out there and buying a pocket watch that Jeffrey Epstein had, would you? Probably not. He probably killed less people. But moving on, we're going to talk about something that might be of interest if you're not contained, if you're not an international fugitive, and you're able to jump through airports, jump on planes and escape to perhaps Switzerland.
Well, this is one just to get in your diary. Watches and Wonders have announced their 2026 dates. Early spring as usual, so it's going to take place from April the 14th through to the 20th. Of course, that's 2026. It will be again, of course, at Palexpo. The final 3 days, that being the 18th, 19th, 20th, will be open to the public. Get it in your diary, maybe even look at flights, look at hotels now, because you might get them for a reasonable rate. The initial 4 days, of course, is for press, media, retailers and selected VIP guests. But if you are Joe Blogs and fancy a look around, get it in your diary now.
And next up, our good friends over at Chipek have done something with Revolution. It's super limited, so we're going to quickly go through the details because I really do like the looks of this one. And unfortunately for me, I picked up a Chipek this year and I'm not getting any pennies left over to buy another one.
Absolutely. This is a new version of the Antarctique. Probably the most popular watch within Chipek's range, I would care to say. This is the Revelation Spectrum. This is a collaboration with Revolution magazine. Now, the Revelation is known for being a fully open-worked, monochromatic beauty within the range of the Antarctiques. But, to use their words, they have invoked the spirit of revolution with this one. What they've actually done is they have incorporated superluminova on the open-worked bridges of this movement. That is in a white superluminova, which has been paired to blue lumed hands. So nearly every visible surface within the movement of this watch will glow when exposed to, of course, UV and things get dark. Watch-wise, 40.5mm case, so it's based on the slightly larger version of the Antarctique, 10.6mm thick. You've, of course, got that integrated bracelet on there, which has got the wee double-sided micro-adjustment butterfly clasp. You're also including a white rubber strap in there, so it can be nice and summery, of course, matching that white lume on the bridges. You've got the SHX7 automatic caliber in there, and you've got that hand-engraved platinum micro-rotor. Because, of course, it's all open-worked, vis-a-vis skeletonized, it does look like it's floating in there. 60 hours of power reserve, running at 4 Hz. There's only 20 pieces of this, and deliveries are from September. Really cool looking watch. Think it will do, of course, very well. I think these 20 pieces will disappear.
Well, the reason we talk about this one, because perhaps it was released over a week ago, there was a little bit of a downtime with me. I was across in a different part of the world because there was a family emergency, so it slipped off the run sheet last time, but it's in this time because it's a great looking watch. If I hadn't picked up with Dave, because he was with me at the start of the year, if I hadn't picked up my only Chipek, and it is going to be my only Chipek, then this one could have been in the running, but I went for one of the tried and tested, one of the OGs, one of the ones that stands out as being across the room. If it's in somebody's wrist, you spot it as a Chipek. If I had my time around again, definitely would have looked at this one because it is super cool. And something else that's super cool is we always talk about Casio. We love Casio, we love G-Shock. We love all the iterations that they do, from the super basic, inexpensive things that maybe you got as a kid, as a teenager, as a birthday gift, right the way through to the MTG, all the really expensive watches that some people poo-poo because they don't understand. The money doesn't always go into the movement. The money doesn't always go into the dial. It goes into the case, the construction, the materials that are used, the machining that has to be employed to get things done. Well, going down to the entry-level points, Casio have done something they've not done before.
Well, this is the first ever mechanical Casio. This is the Edifice EFK-100. They've done a couple of models, in fact more than a couple. They've done 5 new models to this collection, and it's apparently, quote, based around the concept of speed and intelligence. Who knows what that actually means? I'm sure they do as well. Casio, of course, earned its reputation as the manufacturer of affordable, accurate, and feature-heavy quartz watches. So this is a little bit of a departure for them, maybe like the exact opposite to what most Swiss watch brands had to do during the quartz crisis. They have very much aimed this, though, at the entry level of the market. There's 5 models ranging from $340 through to $515. So I think it's fair to say these are firmly in the affordable category. But what have they done for this mechanical caliber? Have they done it themselves? Have they been working on it for years? Have they been pondering what to do to get into this market? No, they've put in a Seiko NH35 movement. I would debate arguably the question is why. Why have they made this move? Who knows? Of course, that caliber, 40 hours of power reserve, runs at 3 Hz. The watches are 39mm in width, 43.5mm lug to lug, 12.5mm thick, with 100 metres of water resistance. So, as a size, doesn't really fall out the norms of what you may expect, to be honest with you. 4 out of the 5 models will come in a stainless steel case on a steel bracelet. They'll weigh around about 150 grams, but that 5th model is going to be in a carbon material. I think we're going to lean towards carbon thermoplastic, probably more than real carbon fibre, but there we have it. It is going to be 45 by 40 millimeters at 12.5 millimeters in height on this one, and it will not be on a bracelet, it will be on a resin band, but of course will weigh a lot less at 87 grams. I believe their technical name for the material is carbon fibre reinforced plastic. There's also a bit of stainless steel in there as well. There is a forged carbon dial on the carbon steel cased version and also an option for the carbon dial on one of the steel versions. The other 3 will be available in a blue, green or white dial. Movement accuracy. Let's go with it's not very accurate. Minus 35 to plus 45 is the quoted run accuracy of the movement. Not ideal would be my case. Don't really quite understand why they've done this watch. They've of course got a great reputation for battery operated quartz and digital watches. They are the darling of super durable, broadly really accurate, bomb-proof watches. As to why they would do this, I personally can't understand it. Ricky, would you have any insight as to why they might want to do this?
No, but something is going on, because you wouldn't really find Honda and Toyota doing things together, really. I don't think so. And the fact that it's got a Seiko inside it, it's a great workhorse movement. We've talked about it many times before. Many of the micro brands that got their start a number of years ago on Kickstarter or just out in the open with the public, they started off with the NH35A, even the Invicta. I'm going to talk about Invicta for a second, but don't stop watching and listening to the podcast, because I bought an Invicta Pro Diver, one of my first ever watches. I wanted to know what all the hassle was all about this brand. Why do people hate it so much? And I didn't own a watch that had a clear case back. So I wanted to see inside, see what the movement was like. My first foray into mechanical goodness with a bit of crystal on the back. And I picked this Pro Diver up and it was okay. It wasn't as horrific as people said. Obviously, I then learned people don't like Invicta because they market something as costing $2,000, but you can get it today for $100 and you can have 4 of them for the price of 1. Okay, the marketing aside, the watches are okay unless you go for the crazy ugly lookers. But Casio doing this at this price point with a dial that's pretty decent. I mean, it's not even carbon effect, carbon fibre, forged carbon on the front. But then you flip it around and you look at the movement, and they've not even decorated the rotor properly. They've stamped something on there, Casio, the logo, etc., but they've not done much more. Even the Invicta has got a coating of yellow to make it stand out. If they just dropped another $5 on there to tart it up ever so slightly, I think it could have been a win. But yeah, I'm going to have to do some investigation, and Dave, you know the guys at Casio as well, so let's put our heads together and figure out what's going on behind the scenes.
Let's get an idea about what they're actually up to, because in my opinion at this point in time, who knows? But talking of unusual things that are happening, Chrono24 have moved towards doing a little bit of a rebrand.
Yeah, following after Bremont and Jaguar, and we don't know what's happening with Jaguar at the moment. That is a strange one. We've not got to the bottom of that one yet. But yeah, Chrono24 have got a new logo. They have almost condensed down the way they're talking about themselves to C24 over Chrono24. They were going to have an IPO, but due to a softening of the secondary market and, well, what we've seen over the past couple of years, since the lofty heights of the crypto bros, the NFTs and things like that, which is really strange, because crypto is at its highest point there or thereabouts than it has been for 10 years. I was looking the other day, and Bitcoin here in the UK was sitting around about £80,000 per unit. And I remember back buying them at $6,000 each, and I thought that was insane back in the day. Then they dipped down to 3 and almost 2 at one point, and then they had a resurgence. So crypto is back, but nobody's really talking about it much. But this brand here, it's something that behind the scenes, there's actually something to do with the guys at Fratello, if I remember correctly. And yeah, it's a bit of a strange one. Dave, what are your thoughts on it?
Obviously, I think a lot of this has probably got to do with that softening of the market. You know, the whole pre-owned market compared to where it was only a few years ago is almost like night and day. They're claiming that this is trying to change the narrative of pre-owned watches to show the human face of watch collecting, bringing more of a sense of community to the online trading of watches. I would argue that's probably already there. You only need to go on to any of the Facebook groups or online communities that already exist, or of course the in real communities, and lots of people have always been talking about selling watches, trading watches, and it is pretty much a human activity. So I don't quite see where this is. Maybe it's just a different way of doing things. They of course have got a new marketing director, Nick de Jong, who had worked with some of the folk at Chrono24 previously at Zalando, which is a fashion kind of house, online fashion house. He started as the new director of marketing, and he's developed this new campaign. Who knows where it goes? I've seen some, very interesting, schmutzy kind of imagery that they've put out so far. I think maybe for me, it's a reaction to how the market is at the moment, trying to drum up a little bit of interest, maybe with a slightly wider audience. Probably a lot of the pre-owned kind of hype that's been in the market over the last few years has been with watch enthusiasts themselves. Maybe it's now trying to expand out into a wider, more relatable marketplace for the wider audience of people who may want to sell their watches.
But all it can mean is good news for watch buyers and watch sellers as more and more people find out that, you don't have to go into the high street, you don't have to go online to the online boutiques to buy a cool watch, and it makes the hobby a little bit better. It's one of those things, unlike other collectibles, that you can enjoy something, sell it on, not lose your shirt, and then move into your next watch that perhaps you could use Chrono24 or one of the other platforms to do so. And there's a watch that we talked about last year. It reminded me of the toy that you probably had as a child. I certainly did. And it is a small block, and inside you had multiple pins, and you'd put your hand there and you press the toy against it, and it would create the image of whatever device or item you'd placed inside. Obviously you used your hand, you used your face. There was no nasty signs using fingers or anything like that. Definitely perished the thought there. But there was a watch that came out maybe a year ago, round about there, and we both loved the look of it. It didn't disappear. The brand behind it didn't stop at just the one. They have iterated, devised new colorways, new ways of using this technology, this kind of dial. I don't even know what you would call it. It's a look that is unparalleled anywhere else. I've never seen anything quite like it. But they're back, and they've got something else to show us.
And who is this brand? It's Colloquium, and they have released a new edition, the Project01 Variant F. So this is a new version that, of course, it has lots of similar DNA to what they've done before, but they've kind of tried to redefine the use of Lume again. Not that they've already done that before, because of course they have, but they've tried to redefine it again and kind of reinforce their position as one of the most original contemporary brands within the design aspect of watches. The brand, of course, pretty unconventional, especially when it comes to dials, founded back in 2020 by three friends. In the case of this issue, 488 lume elements that are emitting a rarer violet glow. Really, they've built on that identity from their very first watch that was launched, I think, around about 2023. The case construction's pretty similar to the original watches with this kind of brutal aesthetic. It's forged rather than machined. You've got an industrial texture on there, 40 millimeters in size. You've got a cylindrical mids case, but it is definitely all about that dial. In the case of this, you've got licht-blocked technology, ceramic resin compound that's been infused with this violet-coloured superluminova. You've got these 488 pins making up the dial. In the case of this one, looks a little bit more normal in a way that this is not normal. You've got these raised areas in the pins around about where you would normally find the appliques on a dial. Definitely need to check out the show notes. Looks super good. The base dial is also in a violet, that you've got this kind of sheen that goes from black to purple depending on the looks. It's a Les Parade movement, a G101 in here as well. 68 hours of power reserve, running at 28,800. You've got an elastic textile strap on there. Only 399 pieces of this, and it's risen slightly in price since the originals. This one coming in at 3,666 Swiss francs, excluding VAT. Cool looking watch. Check out the show notes to get better pictures of it. These will vanish super quickly, so if you do like the look of it, move quickly.
Love the original. Love this one. The same amount, not better, not worse, slightly different. And looking at the Lume tech on this one when it has been brought up to speed and it is just creating a glow, It's almost like the control rod's been taken out of a nuclear reactor. One to check out. Won't have many of them left by the time you hear this or you see the video, so click on the show notes. If you like what you see, go grab it. Again, not inexpensive, because nothing is, but it's less than 5k. It's less than 10k. It's something that if you've got a little bit of pocket money, well, yeah, this could end up on your wrist.
Well, talking of limited editions and something else that's pretty cool and definitely at an attractive price point is something else could end up on your wrist. This being the limited edition Amida Digitrend Open Sapphire watch. Ricky and myself both saw the original model of the relaunch of this brand a couple of years back. I think it was at Geneva Watch Days, if I remember rightly. They relaunched the company in 2024, less than a year ago, and they've definitely been pushing the whole space age 1970s vibe. Now, this one, on the face of it, is almost identical in size, shape, dimensions to that original reissue that only came out around a year ago, but it's definitely got... I can see it straight away. It looks like a Targa top from a classic glass-topped Porsche, probably from, again, around the 1970s. So you've got this huge sapphire, I don't even know how to describe it. It's not a dial, it's not a display, it's a display cover for the whole watch is how I would describe it as.
It's like the glass bit on a fighter jet that pops off when you eject Osito canopy.
Yeah, like a canopy, like a bubble canopy in a fighter jet. It does have that kind of vibe to it as well, for sure. This looks super cool. It really does change the aesthetic of that watch. Whilst if you put them side by side, you can absolutely see that DNA, but it really makes it look more ethereal, more open. Not urethral again, Ricky. Yes, it's like a big glass temple. And of course, what that does is it opens up that...
Is it ethereal or is it ethereal?
Who knows? So yes, you've got that, in-house module that's been built with these dials to allow you to get this driver style watch and that kind of cutaway at 6 o'clock to read the time. But of course, what this canopy or this glass area along the top does is it opens all that up to being visible. That's not how you tell the time from the top. You still have to tell the time from this kind of periscope style refraction area at 6 o'clock. I think it looks absolutely amazing. I've loved the kind of look of these watches since they reissued them. I have to say, I think it's well known that I do like that slightly funky 60s, 70s style watch. 39.6mm in width. Still a stainless steel, I guess, skeleton case because it's got so much glass in it now. You've got that polished sloping cutaway at 6 o'clock, of course, with that prismatic jump hour dial. You've got the completely unimpeded view now of all the opening work of the jump hour complication. You've still got those bright orange colours that have been a bit of a trademark of this brand since they relaunched it as well. 50 metres of water resistance. The base movement is a Soprod Newton P092 automatic movement with that very simple but elegant in-house jump hour module on the top there as well. This one, there's only going to be 150 examples of it issued. The Open Sapphire is going to be 4,500 Swiss francs. So again, very much in that competitive price point for something quite funky, quite original compared to what you might be able to get from the mainstream. Woof. Benji.
Do you remember Benji, Zach and the Alien Prince? Well, you will if you look at this watch and if you look in the show notes, or as Dave likes to say if you're watching us live on YouTube, yeah, this watch, the Amida, it reminded me of Wall-E, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but this is definitely what it reminds me of. This is something from back in the 80s that, yeah, we're dating ourselves. Remember this show?
Sadly, I am old enough to remember this show, yes. Actually, that is not a show I've thought about in probably 30 years, but the second I saw the picture, before you even uttered any words, I was like, oh, it's Benji! But yes, that shows you how much TV can shape your childhood.
It was that one, and it was The Littlest Hobo, where there was this German Shepherd Alsatian dog that would just kick around every episode and do stuff. It was like an 80s version of Lassie. But anyway, we're aging ourselves. We're going to move on to something else. And we really loved a watch over at Watches and Wonders this year, and it was from Gerald Charles. They'd been on the show just a few weeks prior. They'd never told us about the tennis ball watch. Then we got to see it because we'd seen a press release coming out subsequently. We loved it. We thought it was fantastic. Well, the guys at Rado must have been paying attention as well.
Rado have brought out a summer collection of the Rado Anatom watches, 3 new colours that are inspired by fruit. They've got grapefruit, lime and lemon, which kind of equates to red, green and yellow. This is a watch that was originally launched back in 1983. Again, pretty much aging us. You've got a gradient dial that fades from black into this vibrant summer shade in the middle. And I can very much see where Ricky is getting the similarity to that Gerald Charles watch we saw. 32.5mm case. You've got a sandblasted stainless steel middle casing with a black PVD coating. You've got ceramic bezel on there. Of course, Rado being a brand well known for use of ceramics. You've got the sapphire crystal that's shaped to follow the wrist's natural curves. You've got their in-house R766 automatic movement. Of course, it's Swatch Group, so there's likely to be sharing of this movement in some ways with other brands. You've got the Nivacron anti-magnetic hairspring in there, 72 hours of power reserve. You've got FKM straps in matching colours, so they'll be super durable and comfortable to wear, coming in at 3,150 of your UK pounds. I think these are funky, good-looking summer watches. Definitely maybe would lend to a more feminine style, in my opinion.
So you get one then?
Well, there we go, Ricky. Yes, I could see myself wearing the green one. It's quite nice, summery and funky. Probably a little small personally for me, but yeah, good-looking watch.
Quite like them. That's the reason they're in here. We've got a bit of a dialogue with somebody at Rado, so I might get in touch and see if there's a potential availability of getting one up to check out, and Dave can do a little wrist review for us. And it's nearly at the end of the show. We forgot to tell you what we've been up to, and we've got a tiny amount of space left. So Dave, you've been on your travels, not internationally, but nationally. You were down south at one of the many saturated watch events that happen in London. This one we really hoped was going to work because we know the guys behind the scenes. We mentioned it beforehand. We told you guys to check it out. We kept our fingers crossed, but it actually turned out to be a bit of a winner.
It did indeed. So the guys at Oracle Time put on their first proper event called On Herology. It took place in London, just outside the city centre, although still very much in central, but great location. They found a location that had very good natural light, backed up by a little bit of interior synthetic light. It really did set off the show well because everyone commented the light is great. I would say it was set up in a kind of informal style, maybe like something you would expect to see in the US at the wind-up fairs. A great variety of brands. I think in and around the 50 brands were on display there. Everyone from friends of the show, such as Formex, the guys at Studio Underdog, the guys at Isotope. Lots and lots of brands that you would expect from the UK were there, but we had some international people. We had Jonathan over from Brew in New York who came over himself and set up his booth, and we had some of the slightly larger brands there as well. 2 sessions through the day, starting at 10, running through to around 6 p.m, and everyone that I spoke to who came to the show thought it was well run. Great variety of brands, and yeah, really was I think a great first outing for that show. So let's see what they can do going forward. They've already confirmed they want to do it for next year, so if you missed out on it this year, get the dates in your diary as soon as they release them and make your way to London.
Well, really glad that that one worked out because there have been too many London watch events over the past couple of years, and a lot of people jumped on the bandwagon that had no reason to get involved in stuff. Obviously, you've got Watch Pro, you've got British Watchmakers Day, where this is done for the brands. I mean, we know behind the scenes the cost price for trade tables, and if you go to Watches and Wonders, you're spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Swiss francs to actually get a space to showcase. In the UK, some of these companies, event companies, were really taking the piss, but the guys at Oracle Time have done very well, as have obviously the Watch and Clockmakers Alliance. That one is something that we harp on about all the time because it's a token gesture, the amount of money they charge just to cover the hire of the hall. But no, that's really good to hear about this one doing well because a few of them have been utter. And things I've been up to, not much. It has been very busy here, just doing mundane, usual stuff. Although I did manage to get an invite to a Porsche event at Porsche Glasgow. They were doing a viewing, a showing, a screening of Le Mans 24, and you could go down on the Sunday. I thought there would have been more people, but it seemed to be an elite class of people that got invited. I don't know why I ended up going along or getting an invite myself, but I did. Went down, had a look, had some free popcorn, some free nibbles, looked around some of the vehicles they had. Their pre-owned section is just, it's another world. They had all kinds of cool machinery in there. If you're ever passing by, if you're in Glasgow, it's definitely worth taking a trip up there. And those are the guys that tend to look after my cars. Not exactly the upper echelons of automotive industry production, what I have. You can go in there, you can see the GT3 RSs, you can see all kinds of stuff. And they've got more sedate family wagons, they've got the Macans, they've got the Cayennes, etc. Really good event. Nice to see lots of people, and I actually bumped into somebody when I was getting a coffee who listens to the show, and that's Grant. He was there, he was wearing a really cool Smith's watch, and we just had a quick catch up, a quick chat about things before I got my coffee. He was grabbing his, got a couple of snaps, a couple of video clips. It was a decent wee day. Weather wasn't super cool, but yeah, just good to get out and about and stretch your legs or stretch those tires a little bit.
Indeed, well, that wraps up this episode of Scottish Watches. So remember, if you want to get in contact with us, do not send DMs, send us an email to
info@scottishwatches.co.uk.
If you do that and it's something interesting or something confrontational, we may well read it out. Also, get in and about the comments on our YouTube channel. Every Saturday now, we are bringing out the show you're listening to now.
There we go, a great collection of watches to talk about, some events, some things to put in the diary, some things we talked about that we've attended. So all that's left to be said is thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you again soon.